me just screw this a bit better. Hi, party people. I hope I'm live. I'm opening up Facebook to verify. Okay, it says that we're live. Good morning, New York. Good afternoon, UK, London. Thank you for joining Black Genius today. It's a lot going on. It's a bit crazy in the States. I read about how the police were killing protesters this last night. So I have to say a few things about what's going on, because it's a lot, and a lot of us are, really upset and really sad, really angry. I'm quite livid. But this is the reality of America, like I always say. The police were created to criminalize and control Black people. That's the actual origin of the police in the States. So it's really important that we maintain tunnel vision, liberation. I saw some, a lot of people are agitating around abolishing the police. I hope that everybody that's watching this, that you find a way to get involved. You find a way to contribute to change. Because if you're not doing something right now, sorry. Many of you will know that, I had the police called on me 2 years ago. Still nothing has been done about that incident to my satisfaction. But this is every day. I was writing a paper when that happened about how many police precincts in the US have KKK members in them. The people literally just went straight from the KKK into the police system. And only 4% of police precincts were reporting their killing, the rate of death in their custody at that time. So it's no joke. It's no joke. And so we really have to come together. We got to stay organized. We got to get organized. We got to put our money together. TI is calling for a boycott on July 7th. I say boycott now. Like, if you can stop, if anybody non-Black that you're spending money with, and you can stop doing that, I say do it now. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Kevin Beckford. So Kevin is one of these people that gets me really excited about the future for Black people, because he's doing amazing work for Black youth. He has an incredible testimony of his own, super inspiring guy. And I just want to see more people like Kevin succeed. I want to see more investment in people like Kevin. I want to see us get involved with people like Kevin, people like Wumi. The revolution is going to require everybody. It's going to be interdisciplinary struggle. Everybody from every background, whatever you're doing, we have to come together and build that Cross Continental Black Nation. You know what I mean? So Kevin went to Yale, he went to Cambridge, he went to UPenn, he worked for Obama, and through his work with Hustlers Guild, of which he is a co-founder, he is dismantling white supremacy by empowering some of the most disadvantaged youth in DC with access to coding and workforce training, working with companies like Facebook, Google, Sony Music. Like, he's doing the damn thing. Hustlers Guild has brought on, I saw a post on LinkedIn where Kevin was talking about how he brought Snoop Dogg to talk to high school students. And I was like, what kind of genius? What kind of genius is this? Incredible work. So let's get excited. I know you're probably, drumming wherever you're at. So get excited and let's meet Kevin. And I just got to turn his video on. So Kevin, come on video.
Coming right on.
What's up?
Good day, Lola Day. Oh my goodness, that introduction right there, man, that has me feeling like really good. In times, you know what I'm saying, where the world don't want me to feel feel good. You did it with that one. Thank you so much for those kind words.
Listen. We have to hype each other up. We gotta hype each other up. We need to pay attention to what anybody else is saying about us. We are gods. We are the original people. Exactly. Everybody on this planet can be a Black woman, so don't let them disrespect. So I gotta tell. So what's up? Tell us where you're at. Tell the people where you're at. How you're feeling. You told me you were in Philly.
I'm in Philly. That's correct. That's correct. So first and foremost, I just got to thank you so much for this amazing, incredible platform that you have developed. I am so inspired by what you are doing and what you're trying to do. I love it. I love it. I love it. So yeah, I'm currently in Philadelphia right now. I'm from the South Jersey area, but I currently live from Camden, which is just across the bridge from Philly. But I've been living in New York City, going back and forth between New York City and Washington, D.C. For the work that I do with the Hustlers Guild and the work that I do in education at large. Since COVID-19 has hit and kind of, threw things in a spiral in New York City, I said to myself, let me come closer to home for this time being. My grandmother is here. I love my grandmom. That's the BFF. That's the best friend. So I was like, I need to be in the vicinity. So I'm currently in Philadelphia, maintaining and doing my best here. Yeah.
How are things on ground in Philadelphia? Are you guys still on lockdown?
Yeah. So the governor's not playing here. Like, it's like you can't really do anything. Which is, I think for the better in the long term, right? I do think that we really do need to be exercising social distancing in order to navigate and make it through COVID-19. So yeah, I've just been cooped up, chilling, cooking in the kitchen, like both figuratively and literally, working hard, with developing virtual programming for the Hustlers Guild, working for the Urban Assembly, an organization to which I serve as an advancement manager for. So it's just been, just grinding here, just grinding. Yeah.
And so we're gonna get into your story because your story is a film. I told you I want the rights to the series. I'm saying it on live right now, so anybody watching, like, I have the rights to his story. Okay, we'll split it. But your story started between Jersey and Philly, and you come from Jamaica, but you were born in Jersey, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I was born in Camden, New Jersey. I lived really across South Jersey. So I spent some time in Atlantic City, but was mostly raised in a city called Vineland, which is not too far from Camden. I was raised by a host of different relatives. I was raised by a host of communities. So my story and experience is one to which, now that happened to me, my grandmama did call me 3 times during this conversation.
Can you believe it? Let's shame him. Okay, go ahead.
Was raised primarily in South Jersey. My family hails from the wonderful small but mighty country of Jamaica. I grew up going back and forth between living primarily in the States, but going to Jamaica like in the summers, and spending extended period of time there. I'm a dual citizen, so when this stuff pops off and I'm feeling a certain type of way, I may just say, you know what, it's time to go back home. But yeah, no, South Jersey is where I was raised.
I hope your Jamaican passport is current because I feel like you're gonna need it.
Yo,
anybody, if you don't have an exit plan right about now, you ought to get one because things are crazy. So, last time you went to Jamaica?
Say that again. Say that again.
I said, when was the last time you went to Jamaica?
I was in Jamaica 2 years ago. So I went for about 2 weeks. It was actually my first time. Normally when I go to Jamaica, I go to see family. You do the whole family thing. You bring, you bring gifts, you bring a ton of items. This time I did the vacation thing. So I went to Montego Bay and just chilled. And then I saw family at the tail end. So this was cool.
I want to know more about that later. But okay, so we were talking about your childhood. Your grandmom is your bestie. I'm still tripping off of the story about your uncle and how everybody kind of just sort of stepped up and helped raise you. And so I know you had a rough time with mom and dad. So talk a little bit about your childhood and your early story.
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in I was raised by a host of communities. I grew up with a lot of love. A lot of people poured into me. Just being frank, I didn't have relationships with either my mother or father. My mother, who I now am very close with, was dealing with some heavy mental hygiene issues. was rather, abusive. And we had a really tumultuous relationship, myself and my mother as a child. But, there were people who saw me and really invested in me and poured love into me. My grandmother, was my primary caretaker, but so were my uncles. One uncle in particular, he's probably watching right now, my Uncle Cliff. What up, Cliff? That man right there, really raised me to, at an early age, even though I had people pouring into me, I had to be very independent. And he poured into me. He raised me to be a man, like when I was 5. And so this is a story I've shared with you before. He, when other kids were like, running outside and playing hopscotch and, doing this and that, playing ball, my uncle had me reading newspapers. And he would, so my aunt taught me to read. When I learned how to read, my uncle was like, okay, we're going to take this to the next level. You need to every day read the newspaper. I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to pick random stories, ask you questions about, I'm going to test you for your comprehension, and I'm going to gauge what is your opinion on this issue, right? And if I wasn't able to come up to standard, I'll get my ass whooped. So my reality was, all right, at the time I didn't see it, but I see it now. Like it really, that him kind of rearing me in that way got me invested in politics. It made me aware of what's happening in the community. All the while, I was as a kid, oftentimes I would go, he would take me to the barbershop and they would basically just drop me off. So I wouldn't make an appointment. They would just drop me off. I would have to wait. And you know how the barbershop is. You got people cutting in before you. And it's like, oh, it's my turn, right? It's like, nah, little man, it's my turn. And you're like, okay, so I got to stay there for hours.
You seen the barbershop? Gotta ask you that.
I haven't. No, I haven't.
It's really, so the image, because it was making the rounds recently, and the image, every time you talk about your barbershop, moments in childhood, I'm thinking about that play and how it brought like so many different types of Blackness together.
And it does. Facts, it really does. I mean, that was my exposure to, Blackness in its variety. Spending 4 hours waiting to get my hair cut and being exposed to all these different people, right? So, you had my barber who was talking one thing. You had, the lawyer and politician who was coming in to get his lineup. You had brother man selling bean pies, who wanted to, had his persuasion he was trying to get us on board with, right? You had a pastor in the room. You had all these different types. You had the activists. You have all these different types of people coming from these different perspectives in one space. So from an early age, I think my politic was reared. I was very much reared to be pro-Black, unapologetically pro-Black, to understand the nuances and the beauty of Blackness, right? The beauty of Blackness in its true, in its true form. And I've always embraced that. So I'm truly grateful. Actually looking back, I had a really, in some respects, if you look on paper, like a really challenging childhood and a really challenging upbringing. Like if you look like what circumstances I was, circumstances I was in, what I had resources to, what have you, right? But, I was raised by a really beautiful and very wealthy community, right? And so what may have been impeded by structural racism was very much made up for and infinitely compounded by the talent and the excellence and the diversity that I was exposed to. So I'm grateful for that.
And so one thing that really struck me about your story, so being from Jamaica, you spent a lot of time in Africa. We're going to get to that part.
Yeah.
And you had this really diverse type of Blackness around you. I'm curious about like the Jamaican community where you grew up, and every time I come across Jamaicans, whether it was in Brooklyn or Missouri, they were always like hyping up Africa. Like it was like Africa this, Africa that, African queen, African queen that, So I'm really curious about what your upbringing was like in terms of that, and like, did you have access to African cultural knowledge? Like, what made you want to go to Africa so young?
Yeah, so I definitely had access. I definitely had exposure to notions of Pan-Africanism and Black transnationalism from a very early age. Your assessment is spot on, right? Jamaica and its affinity to continental Africa, it is just so real, and vice versa. The love that love is just so beautiful. I grew up like, you are Black, you are African, we have this Jamaican pride. Now, Jamaicans were proud people. We're proud people. If you saw the Bounty Killer Beanie Man versus battle, you already know. We proud people. We play a national anthem. Right. Like all of that. We embrace it. We love it. We are proud of our Jamaicanness. And we're cognizant of the fact that, there's a lineage of Black African influence in the country, right? And that was what I was raised on, and that was the way I was raised to function in the world. So like when from a young age, my thing was like, okay, like I need to, like, I want to go to college, right? I want to go to college. I want to do big things, positive things in the world, but I'm going to go to Africa. And most people thinking like when they travel, if they're going to travel, oh, I'm going to go to, maybe the Caribbean and maybe Spain or Italy. I was like, nah, bump all of that. At some point, I'm going to be in the motherland because I see all this influence already in Jamaican culture. And I was just always just interested in that, and was also raised to embrace, my Blackness and being African. So when I had the opportunity, in college to study abroad, I was like, yo, like, we're not doing Europe. We're going to Africa. So yeah.
So you did, I'm gonna tie in your high school experience to the time in Africa, because so you did Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, right? You said you did a couple, 2 years, a year and a half. How much time did you spend collectively in Africa in college?
That's exactly right. I spent about a year and a half in primarily in East Africa. So for me, it was important to go to Africa, to really just see to explore the Black diaspora, globally, because here in the States, there are so many negative images of us that are purported in the media. There are so many false narratives. I knew there were false narratives growing up in a community such as mine. And I was very, very from a young age determined to, see the beauty and wealth that existed elsewhere. And so, when I was in high school, applying to colleges, my whole thing was like, okay, I'm applying to historically Black colleges because I know they have pipelines, like travel pipelines to study in Africa, and they got money, that would perhaps support, what I was trying to do, and Ivy League schools because they got money. So I was like, I'm going to one of the two, and I'm going to go to, I'm going to study abroad, in continental Africa, and that's exactly what I did when so I applied to all the schools, as such, and ended up going to Yale University. And as you know, Yale got money. Now, Yale got problems it needs to work out. Let's not deny that.
They'll be throwing money. They be like, you want to go to China next week? Okay.
Right. Study abroad. I was like, yes, give me all the money. Let me tell you something. Listen, and I grew up a hustler. Like, listen, I am someone who believes in taking advantage of opportunities. And that's really my purpose in life, is to expound and to share opportunity. And so when I went to a place that had such an abundance, it really disgusted the abundance when you think about it, of resources and opportunities, because
it's reparations.
But it's reparations. I was like, I'm gonna take mine. Shoot, if you're not gonna give it to me, government, in the way that you should, I'm going to take it from this university. So I was out and about traveling like every summer. I was doing internships. I was studying, abroad. I landed a couple jobs. But I spent most of my time in East Africa. I was going to go to Nigeria at first, and then the situations didn't allow for it at the time. Yale was like, "Nah, we can't send you there. We won't give you money to go there." So I was like, "Oh, all right." So I went.
Like, no travel allowed.
Yeah. Yeah, so I went to, so I spent a lot of time in East Africa. So Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya were the 3 countries I spent the bulk of time in, but then traveled to, to Ethiopia and Rwanda as well. So, yes.
So your political career started when you were 10? Because I want to get to the Museveni speech. So you wrote a speech to counter Museveni, and I remember about when you were in high school and you had this whole op-ed war with your illiterate principal.
Yep. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Let's take it back to 10 years old, NAACP youth council. Talk about that. How you got to be writing op-eds at 14 to an illiterate KKK member who's your principal.
Listen. So, my family, we are Jamaican, we are African, we are just unapologetic in our politics and in our beliefs. I was raised that way. And, for me, being a 10-year-old, I was being a young child and seeing the disparities that existed and also being able to juxtapose that from some unique situations, right? So I went to a predominantly Latino and Black school, but then I was in the gifted classes and I was the only Black student, right? And then knowing the resources that, those white families had and, and having the treatment as the only Black student in those classes and, just having that juxtaposition of experience was like, y'all got to do something. That's how it was weird. And my family was in full support. So when I was 8 or 9, I, reading the newspaper that my, uncle used to make me read, I came across an advertisement to volunteer in political campaigns, in a political campaign. And so I was in the ad section. So I call them up and I'm like, I want to volunteer. So, I started volunteering and I brought my auntie, April along, and we started just, doing canvassing, and eventually I started doing logs, and I was doing actually some for a kid, doing some cool work for some of these local council campaign. And yeah, it just sparked, that sparked something for me to really get out there and do something. So at age 10, I joined the NAACP Youth Council. The NAACP for me as a child was just that organization that I really, really took on and really, was with great support. So I did that from from age 10 through college. And so just, and I think what was interesting about my experience, and I try to say this with humility, I had really had a community that poured into me. People, young students, adults, teachers, they saw what I was doing and they were very go for it. We see you trying to dismantle, the racism that is, that so pervades, the community. We're going to support you any type of way. And so going to the principal, the then principal thing, you can say, rest his soul, because he's not here. But this man was just when I was when I was in high school, and there were issues, being kind of a youth activist, really.
Tracking was a problem.
Yeah, being a youth activist and, and seeing the issue of the big issue at the high school I went to was tracking. And it was that issue I just mentioned that a lot of us are aware of. Predominantly Latino, Black school. How is it that there are no Black students in these gifted classes, in these honors classes, right? How are you telling? And when you get to the root of the problem, you learn that, it's there's that obvious bias in tracking. You had students of color, Black students, Latino students who are being told this class is not for you. Had I not had a grandmother who will cut you out in a minute in the name of Jesus, I would not have been in the honors program because my guidance counselor was telling me that that wasn't the program for me, right? Or while I'm, coming in as a top student, that's what I'm being told, right? And so when I'm bringing these issues to this principal, he's turning a blind eye. That school also passed this really racist dress code policy. I don't know if we talked about this, but passed this really, it was basically you can't at this time, you can't wear hoodies, you can't wear baggy tees. It was basically you can't be Black in your dress. That's what it came down to. You can't be Black. So And obviously, you know, like people don't want to do that. And then also like there is an economic impediment to even being able to follow that in a school. You're not even given, you know, the money, the funds to do this. You're not even like providing a uniform, you know, subsidized to actually do this. So him and I were, you know, went back and forth on that, had a whole op-ed war. Like I wrote an op-ed, he called, you know, they wrote an op-ed, called me some crazy stuff. You know, like I'm like 14 and I'm like, wow, I'm having like public discourse, you know what I mean, with these folk who are really striving to maintain this white supremacist culture within an experience within education. So yeah.
Because it seems kind of prophetic, right? So like you have experiences like the NAACP, and I feel like the 14-year-old, you know, writing op-eds against you know, a KKK principal.
Yeah.
It's kind of prophetic that you would end up working in the White House, you know, writing speeches for Museveni. Like I'm already seeing you, you know, running for office. So when you think back on that, how do you feel like that fed into your career, you know, your career trajectory, those early experiences?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think from a young age, you know, I developed tough skin. I developed, you know, a strong sense of purpose. You know, I knew from a very young age that Black liberation was the goal, and oriented myself less than like a job or profession, but more to the opportunity, right, to which I am able to be an effective dismantler of white supremacy. So those experiences were very, very formative for me. I knew like going to college, I was like, all right, like I'm here, I majored in African American studies, science, you know, I'm going to be intentional on, you know, on pursuing research, on traveling, on becoming a fully whole self, on becoming an actualized person, right, that can navigate and sustain through this incredibly racist American society we live in, and to incite change. So it set me up very well. So, you know, after college, you know, I went to the University of Cambridge. That was kind of like a, you know, yeah, that similarity. It was like a gap year kind of thing, to be honest with you.
University.
Yeah, yo, it's wild to say that. I know it's wild to say that. It's wild to say that.
Okay, we hear you.
Yeah, no. So what happened was the fellowship office at Yale. They were like, listen, you know, and I was like, and I think, you know, and I'll back up and just say, I try my best to just follow the guidance and advice that God gives me, and to just go with my heart. And so I'm okay with taking the road less traveled, and kind of doing the thing that feels right, that is in line with my purpose, but I don't really know where it's going to fit, right? And so when I was in college, unbeknownst to me, I was doing all the right things. And so it made me basically, I was identified as a candidate for competitive fellowships and scholarships. And so the fellowship office was like, we think you'd be a great candidate for Rhodes. And at that point, you know, I'm like, all right, cool. Like that's an intensive application. And, you know, at that point I was in Kenya, and I was like, you know, like living life and, you know, doing what I need to do. And I was like, you know what? I don't even want to do this. I'm not going to finish the application. I'm not going to do this application. I'm not going to apply. This isn't me. Doesn't make sense, right? So I didn't do it. The fellowship office at Yale was like, oh, you can apply for this other scholarship, the Gates Cambridge Scholarship, for, you know, study at the University of Cambridge. And, you know, that application was significantly less intensive. I knocked that bad boy out in a couple lecture courses. Like I just had a laptop out, like all right, cool. Submitted, bam, and I was accepted to that program. Like, you know, my fellow Gates scholars. So yeah, so I did Cambridge for a year. I did a master's in African studies. And that was kind of like a little bit of a gap year, because it was like, okay, I'm just going to try this. Like, this is an amazing opportunity that's been afforded. You know, let me go with it. Traveled a bit through Europe. Was very keen to explore Black spaces you know, across, you know, like Barcelona and Madrid and Paris. The fifth was everything in Paris. You know, and then also I took advantage of, you know, Cambridge was interesting, and I took advantage of the flexibility, and I spent a lot of time again in Uganda on their money, on their dime.
So okay, so I wanted to get to your time in the White House, right?
Yeah.
So after college and master, you taught, right? And then
Yep.
Opportunity to go and work for Obama, and you were talking about how coming up as a Jamaican, cultural, the cultural influence, the political influence, you would like, it's all about dismantling white supremacy. So how did that work for you in the White House? What was, how did you sort of like navigate an environment like that with your belief systems? I mean, clearly, we all love the Obamas, but I'm curious, how did your politics kind of flow with the work that you had to do for the administration?
Sure. Yeah. It was interesting. So first and foremost, let me say what an honor and a privilege, it was to serve in that administration as a political appointee. I will never forget the experiences of bringing my whole church to the East Wing multiple times, a busload, and just being like, yeah, we're going to do this tour, right? Or bringing my sisters and having my sisters take selfies in the West Wing in the bathroom. And I'm like, I know what you're doing. Like, or having my grandmama meet, the first lady and engage in conversation with her. Moments like that, I will always remember and really prioritize. And, I met some really great people. I met some really dope people. Some of my closest friends, a good friend of ours, Darren, that's the homie. I met him there. And I met some really great people, was able to do some great work. It was interesting, though, to navigate with my politic in that space. That is, we should always herald the fact that, President Obama is the first Black man, to lead this country, and that's something nobody can take away. And there was been strong legislative, there's not just legislative and just like agenda items, rather, I should say, that have been, passed. And he really saved this nation, at a very tumultuous time when he came in. But the White House itself is still an institution of white supremacy, and its lineage is that. Like, let's not kid ourselves. Like, I did not go in there expecting for things to just be like, radically different because there's a Black man in office. I knew what it was. So for me, it was like going in there with perspective, right? And so, like, knowing that this is an amazing opportunity, one just like in life that I've been afforded, but then also, an opportunity to try to take my perspective and see what we could do with it. So I worked in the office of presidential correspondence. And so that's the office that handles like casework, letters, emails, public communication. And I manage the domestic policy portfolio for the bulk of my time there. And so basically crafting and crafting correspondence and engaging with the American public, escalating public opinion and discourse to the president's desk was all within my portfolio. Everything from police brutality to gun safety to education was kind of in my realm. And I, as someone who, with my politic and wanting to be truly responsive to the American public, especially as, the bulk of the correspondence that we would get would be around police brutality, believe it or not, surprise, surprise, and race relations. And there were folk who just did not want to, in my opinion, adequately respond and adequately handle those topics. And at large, there did seem to be a lot of gatekeeping that prevented like true, escalation of the correspondence and policy and what have you. So I was fighting, like I was crafty, like an MF. Like I would, be engaging in secret, in conversation with this person, to kind of almost lobby, right, for inclusive communications. So it was a great experience, but I mean, it was one that was not surprising. And again, I think my experiences of past reared me for it. Like I was ready. Like I came in there like, oh, what's good? Like what do we have to do, to get us represented, right? And to get, to get our stories and our perspectives, recognized and responded to and addressed.
So how do you feel about this moment? So like, I talked a little bit when I came on about, what's happening in the States and the violence is happening. I'm curious what kind of correspondence you received, like what kind of stories you were exposed to while you were in the White House, related to police brutality, and how you feel about everything that's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hurt. I'm hurt and I'm angry, right? I'm incredibly angry right now. My grandmama called 3 times while we were talking all day. I'm pretty sure she thinks I'm out like protesting right now. I'm positive because
wow.
right before, so I know when she was like, "Oh, that." So I'm ready. I'm feeling a lot of emotions, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. But this moment is very much a reflection of this kind of the past. I mean, this is nothing new. Like Black bodies being slain by white perpetrators who are not being held to accountable, who are able to enact these gruesome acts because of the institutions to which they belong. This is nothing new. This is this country's history, right? So there's a bit of numbness at the same time that I feel, as well, because it's just looking like, oh, it's just everyday business. What I am motivated by is like people want to say, oh, like it's looting, oh, violence, whatever it is. No, to me, it's action. And I'm all about the action by any means necessary, whichever way it comes. And I think it's what, yeah, I think it's what instigates. I think we need instigation right now. And I could imagine, I don't think this administration, I don't think Orange Moon 45 has a correspondence scheme in full play. But when I was there, what if this was happening at that time, I would imagine those letters looking the same as they did before, right? I remember one letter came in, a mother wrote in, she was like, I'm the mother of a 10-year-old autistic Black boy. And I am so petrified of, him ever, going like outside of my sight. And for me, I'm currently helping to take care of 2 autistic children. I have a young, my nephew calls me dad, Nathan. It's my biggest fear. It is my biggest fear that, that if he were to ever go, out of sight or like out, or if he's a big dude, if someone ever mistook him for anything other than the sweet kind soul he is, someone would harm him. And so that's really what, and that's the type of correspondence rather, I could that used to come in all the time. Erica Garner, she actually had written in before, and that was like probably one of the most just like formative experiences for me to kind of like see that correspondence and having to escalate that. But the stories were just always just like it was real. Like people would say, my father died, my mom, passed away, died, was murdered. Let me not say passed away at the hands of police officers. These were the type of real stories. And, oftentimes people would often, as they are now, connect them to these one-off acts, as they want to say, to the issue at large of police brutality or other sectors, right? Like education or healthcare or housing. So, yeah.
So my follow-up would be about the solution. And it seems like what you're doing at Hustlers Guild is, a critical part of the solution, the work that needs to be done to end racism, to end police brutality, and just to really empower Black people. So I know you founded Hustlers Guild with a few people that you met at the Obama administration. So talk about Hustlers Guild, talk about that light bulb moment and how you decided like this is what you were gonna, this was how you're gonna serve.
Sure, yeah. So as I was leaving the administration, trying to think, about, next steps and the ways in which, I could take the opportunity that was afforded to me, the access and the resources that comes along with that. How can we take this and pivot this for greater social impact? In thinking this, a good friend came to me, Yasmin Selena, shout out to Yas. She came up to me and she came to Jason, my other co-founder, and it was like, listen, like I have this idea. We, you know, at the time, like we're you know, we are education oriented, we're unapologetic, you know, in our mission, very pro culture, very pro Black. She was like, let's take, you know, let's form the Hustlers Guild. Let's essentially leverage our access and our resources and our affinity for culture, and create something to which we are building opportunities for youth in DC and beyond. So that's how we started. It was the brainchild of Yasmin. I always got to give credit where credit is due, and she's the executive director of the whole project. So she is just a boss running things. She brought us along, and we was like, yo, like, let's do what we got to do. The three of us as three people, like we basically hustled our way in many ways to that White House. Like, I don't think people would expect any of from the stories we were in, experiences we represent. A lot of people wouldn't normally relate that to like, oh, you that's where you at. I'm a first generation, high school grad, so it's kind of like people wouldn't make that association naturally. So yeah, we were like, let's hustle for these kids. And so started, we're a 501c3 organization. We have a multi-pronged approach to the work that we do with young people. We do, when schools were open and before this, we provided direct learning support for students to build technical, social, and emotional, and career readiness skills. And so that was teaching kids to code, teaching them with the necessary social and emotional learning competencies to excel in career and beyond. So we did that on one end. We did a lot of programming around just building access to young people to see spaces that were in their city and they just then never knew about or just wouldn't have gone to, right? So curating experiences to go to Facebook and Google and Microsoft and see all these different places, right? We do a lot of work with internship placement. And so we work with young students ages 10 through 24. And so with our, college age students, most of our work is placing them in internships or entry-level jobs. We've good partners of ours is Sony Music U, to which we've been able to pass talent there. And then also finally, we curate events to bring awareness about this issue, this matter of building opportunity and access for young people into the innovation space. And so what that's looked like in past, we've hosted events with good partners of ours, the rapper Cowboy, rapper Dave East, at high schools for students to talk about their journeys, the role of innovation and technology, and their experiences. Now, since COVID-19 has hit, and we all obviously have made this pivot to virtual engagement, we hustled, and really shout out again to my co-founders. We were like, yo, this is real for our students. Like, you got students with real talk who are like, I don't have a laptop. I'm not connected to the internet. How can I do this remote learning thing my school wants me to do? Or we don't have, or families being like, yo, we hungry. You know what I mean? I just got laid off from my job. I need to eat. To, students, I'm really feeling it, during this time, this is a whole different situation. The environment around me is may not be motivating or XYZ, right? And so we were like, bet we got to pivot. And so we did a really dynamic pivot. I'm so proud of my team. Really came through to translating our programming to the virtual and e-learning space. We now host these sessions called Hustle and Hangouts. And so what you mentioned earlier, we bring on people like Snoop, Anthony Anderson, Jess Hilarious, Cowboy, these people to just name a few, Kevin Alusala from the band Pentatonics, We bring on these people to basically lead these inspiring social and emotional learning sessions for young people to help them navigate through this time and how to take advantage of this time. There are some, advantages, right, with in some ways of like engaging with the digital space and just having time to work and to reorient. And so we host these sessions for students to get them to really, ensure that they can thrive during this time.
So what are you most proud of? You told me about, a few different instances where you brought pretty big, names into programming with your students. What is the moment that, you're most proud of from Hustlers Guild so far?
Wow. That's a tough question. There's a lot. I probably would say the Davies experience. I thought that was pretty dope. So we partnered with a high school in New York City to bring Davies to essentially do like a surprise visit to the school. And, Dave is from Harlem, from East Harlem. Most of the students at the school is based in East Harlem. It's one of the few, standing like public schools led by a Black man. Like that whole experience was just everything. Like the conversation was dope. It was probably one of the proudest moments of my life. One of the young women who moderated the discussion between Davies and students, this young woman named Umu, just seeing her just shine. I mean, shine to the point where people didn't know she was a high schooler. So like real talk, like we had, a bunch of big radio stations in New York. They were like, yo, who is she? Like, we want to talk to you. She like, oh, I'm 17. Like, I think that was a proud moment for me. Like just seeing that whole experience and seeing what it meant for students and what it meant for the school. It was really dope. Yeah.
You had some students go on to become influencers and entrepreneurs and doing big things in their own right.
I've told her, yo, put me on. I'm like, yo, like whoever, like when you like, I'm trying to put you on so you can put me on, right? Like that's low key like that's the African way. You know what I'm talking about when your parents like, oh, we're gonna make sure you rise to the occasion. But when I get old, you better take care of me. Like,
early.
Right.
So okay, so I want to looking over the rest of my questions. We have a question from the Facebook fam.
Okay.
So we have a question from Rashawn Davidson. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right.
Oh yeah, that's my sister.
That's your sister. Okay. She says, what is your advice for parents raising young Black boys?
Oh, that's a good question. I think my advice would be multi-pronged. I would definitely say first and foremost, pour love into your child. Make sure that they feel affirmed, that they feel loved, that they know that they belong. This is a world that's going to makes young Black boys feel like they don't belong in this world. And so I think it really starts at home with the parents and the community pouring into. I'm grateful because it's people legit like my sister Rashawn that poured into me and made me feel loved. So that's one thing I would say. I would also say, prepare yourself mentally and emotionally because it's going to be a challenge. You're gonna have moments perhaps of just like anger and fear. You kind of have to do some perspective taking so you can be whole and be able to raise your child the best way you can, right? You don't want it to be like, okay, like I'm just so scared I'm not going to let my son ever do anything or like go out into the world and experience, right? So yeah, I would say, but at the same time, you want to just have a little like care and like, awareness. So those are the two things I would say.
Awesome. And then Farley Ayodele, I'm always calling you Farley. She wants to know how kids can get involved in Hustlers Guild. So if somebody has a 10-year-old you said 10 to 18?
Oh, 24.
10 to 24.
Yeah.
So somebody has, somebody in that age range, is it possible for their children to access your programming, or is it only through the schools that you work with?
That's a great question. So for a time, our programming was primarily in DC and New York and schools there. The interesting thing about COVID-19, we had to pivot. to the virtual space. And in 5 weeks, I'll just say this very quickly, in 5 weeks, we reached more students than we were able to in 3 years. And so we have actually been able to really leverage, connections and network and the culture in a very positive way. And so all of our stuff is now virtual. So you can simply go to hustlersguild.org and just, sign up to receive updates. Follow us on Instagram at the Hustlers Guild. Follow us on social media, where you'll find all of our programming that's coming up. So yeah, it's really easy to get plugged in. All you really need is pretty much a smartphone, is a phone. We in responding to the realities that a lot of our young people don't have laptops, we've been able to secure laptops for some, but we're not at a point to which we can give everybody a laptop. And so we chose a very easy, accessible platform. We're very thoughtful in how the team is very thoughtful in how they curate the experiences. So all you need is a phone, really. And that's it. Yeah, it's super accessible. Just follow us on social.
Big ups to you, Kevin. I'm so impressed. I'm really excited for the future of Hustlers Guild.
Oh, thank you.
Kevin Beckford for president.
They're not gonna let me be president. They're gonna be like, "You said what?" I'll be like, "Yeah, I said it. I said it."
Okay, so I want to know, because you're a hip hop head. So clearly, because what you do at Hustlers Guild, you guys clearly are big hip hop fans. Who's your favorite MC of all time?
Oh, I was just having this conversation. I gotta go 3 ways. I'm sorry. And they're just super random people. They're very random. But Busta Rhymes, I love whimsical, eccentric. I love that about his music. He's a talented MC, super underrated lyrically. So Busta, Kendrick Lamar. And the third is Nas. Nas, I would probably rank my top, but the production for a lot of his work isn't always, but I love him as an MC, as a lyricist.
Illmatic.
Yeah. Illmatic is everything. Illmatic is everything.
You have great taste. What's your favorite film, your favorite Black film of all time? Because I know you only know Black films. You've never seen
I only know Black films. Yeah, so I don't know really anything else. You say something else, I'll be like, oh no. My favorite film of all time is Baby Boy. Now, people always give me slack for saying that, but let me explain to you why that is my favorite film. I love that film so much for its representation. So I saw representation of skin tone, which is often lacking, unfortunately, in some of our films. So I love to just see the beauty of Blackness, just physically there. I loved the authenticity of it. I love the fact that it really wasn't into play of respectability politics, and it was just a film that was a film, right? And it was just something I saw as a child. You know what I mean? It was that film that my sister Patricia and I would recite word for word. Like my sister would be Yvette, I would be Jody. Now, obviously, we saying words we're not supposed to say, but it was just, it's that film that just reminds me of childhood, that just feels super familiar. So I would say that's one. That's probably it. Then there are other random films like Jenny 5, but that's a whole nother thing. I like comedy too.
What is the secret to your success? You talked, last time we spoke about faith a little bit, and I'm curious. You've done a lot of great things, and you're only going to do even greater things. So I'm curious, what keeps you going? What's that secret sauce for Kevin? What's the thing that you can't live without that helps you, get to the next level every time?
It's a great question. For me, it's primarily been keeping God first. Really trying to follow direction, His direction. That is a big part of my being. I'm an unapologetic, proud follower of Christ, and so try to live in alignment with that, and really just seek guidance spiritually. It's also, and with that, it's what it looks like for me. It's like calling my girlfriend and my grandmother, and asking for prayer and praying with them and doing Bible study on the phone. It looks like, singing hymns. Like when I'm nervous, because of life, it's the times you're anxious, I may sing a hymn or something just to like get me, like calm my spirit. Yeah, no, for faith is really very important, very, very important to me. And there are a lot of like little different things that I do that are very Black. That even though like you can talk about the Christian faith lineage, but like very much like, I mean, listen, like I'm playing on Saturday. If I was to talk to you right now, I'll probably have Kirk Franklin on right now, like making some breakfast, getting ready, get my mind ready for it. I'm probably gonna do that after, to be honest with you. Get my mind ready for this versus battle. Then I may put on like a little Illmatic or something, right? But that's, just like feeding my spirit with the things of my faith is pretty important.
Wow. Okay. So let's say God, I don't know, Obama shows up and he's like, I'm gonna give you $10 million, Kevin. I'm gonna give you $10 million to, to liberate Black people. What do you do with that $10 million?
Ooh, 10 million is not enough. You said 10 million? Like, what do you mean with 10 million to like do the job?
10 million. What would you do with 10 million? What would you do with 10 million? It doesn't have to solve all of the world's problems.
Okay.
All the problems that are most important to you.
Okay, that's a good question. I could go a few different ways with that, but I guess I would probably, to be frank, I would take that and invest in the Hustlers Guild, because I think we're doing all right. I would take that money and try to build opportunities for us, so that we're able to cross the economic limitations and boundaries that kind of prevent us from certain opportunities. So I'd probably invest perhaps in programs like the Hustlers Guild on one end. I would love though to like do something like fund every Black person to have like a trip studying abroad. You know what I mean? Like to Africa. So like so that they could have that experience. Yeah. So I'll probably invest in exactly. It's already being done. Like, so more or less like, invest in such an experience to which people can, come back to the States. Because to me, Black liberation isn't just about,
that was gonna be the last question, so you're perfect. Yes. Okay.
Like Black liberation is not just about being like free from the social and economic and political confines that oppress Black people, right? But to me, it's also a liberation of mind and of spirit. And I'm a firm believer that exposure to the nuance and the beauty and the diversity of Blackness, especially as it relates to the continent, is important and is necessary. And so I would like fund like Birthright Africa probably. It's like, with that money and to get to the point of like what Black liberation is. We have to, as a people, be truly autonomous. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just like having a job or having a degree or a title. Cause we see this with Amy Cooper, right? Like this brother, man, like, he's living his life. He's essential, he's in New York, bird watching in Central Park and he's breathing. And you got this white woman still called the police on him. Right. He, that's just a prime example of like how we are in fact, we are in fact responding to the disgusted and just overwhelming racism of this country. And what it looks like to me is just like having the freedom from that and, to be unbounded by that perhaps, but then also to be affirmed in yourself and know that person's judgment of you, that's on them. That has nothing to do with you. They see your strength. They see your value. Hell, you see how they emulate our culture, how they want to be us, how they want to look like us, right? They see our strength. Be affirmed in yourself and know and be truly liberated is to truly know yourself and to know that you are a king, that you are a queen.
Wow, I don't even want to say nothing after that. Like you just closed it out. You just dropped the mic. That was perfect. Oh my God, thank you so much, Kevin. So, I told you we were going to bring Alex on. So I have a surprise for those watching. We did an interview with Alex Sado. He is the founder of Alliance for Africa's Intelligence. They're doing some incredible work on artificial intelligence, but really mobilizing technologists on the continent. So I'm going to bring him on. We're going to release his episode this weekend as well. So I want you guys to tune into that. And I would love for you guys to meet, continent, like diaspora.
Oh, for sure. He's doing big things. Trust and believe. We'll make that connection. We'll make that happen.
I hope Alex is ready. We're bringing him in the room, and then we're gonna wrap up. But while I bring Alex in, follow us on Instagram, Nora Press. Follow our Facebook page. If you're doing any dope work across the diaspora, please tell us about it. We're gonna launch our blog very soon, so we want to be, posting your press releases. We want to know about all the great work you're doing to liberate Black people wherever you're at. Alex is here.
Hello.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, how are you doing, Kevin? I think I'm going to take off that background thing.
Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you too. Oh my God, it's been incredible to listen to you, Kevin. Amazing work you've been doing. I had to wake up at 6 a.m. to listen to this, so I'm glad I did.
Well, my brother, I hear about and know of the great work that you're doing. I'm trying to be like you. That's what we're really trying to do. We're trying to be like you.
Wow, I've been dreaming of when I'm going to be like you when I grow up. So this is great, I guess. We all have things we want to emulate and admire about one another. Like Lola Day, I wish I could host a show like this. This is incredible. I think it's just about all of us coming together, as that's the only way we can defeat all this prejudice.
Yeah. Wonderful. So Alex, tell us what you've been up to. Last time we spoke, like the pandemic was just kicking off. People were screaming about a vaccine. And, you guys were going to go to Geneva, and it's been pushed to October. What's been happening with Alliance for AI since then? What are you excited about for the future?
Oh boy, very busy. Very busy. We've just continued the work, because with us, we really believe in, just giving people who look like us a voice. Because like the power is in each and every one of us. Like we all have something to say. We all have an innovative voice. And for us, it's how do we give that voice to people who look like us so they can keep just growing. I feel like that's the only way we're going to defeat this. So speaking specifically, I mean, we just had several events almost every other weekend. Today, I'll have a couple of conversations. One of them is a Q&A with some folks who are learning about AI and data science and how to use that to solve problems in Ghana, an institution called Blossom Academy. And so we'll speak with them today, just share some information about my career journey, and more importantly, answer their questions on how to just, find work at home, find work on the internet, remote, and just use that to solve problems, essential problems of healthcare, agri, and whatnot, right? Next Saturday, I'll talk about 3. Next Saturday, June 6th, we will have the first gathering of AI communities across Africa. So we've limited it to 20 founders. What did you say?
Invite to that.
You have to be leading an AI community, but because it's you, I will let you in. Yes. No, we'll let you in if you can find the time on a Saturday when you are mostly busy as well. So we'll have about 20 leaders. Like these are people who have just against all odds decided that, okay, I live in Malawi, nobody here knows about AI. I'm going to put up a tent and teach people about AI. And 20 folks show up, it becomes 80, and they keep teaching, but then they have struggles. They don't know how to raise money. They don't know where to find data. They don't know what to do after teaching. It's like, okay, where do these people find work, right? But they exist all around the continent. And so we found these folks and we brought them together. Thank God for Zoom. And we're going to have a Zoom call where they're going to breakout rooms, discuss different problems and challenges and exchange, because like the guy in Kenya, what's his name now, Ngere, he knows how to do podcasts, right? But then, and raise money for that. But the lady in South Africa knows how to do 3D printing. She knows how to do other stuff. So it's like, can you guys just meet and exchange and let's do this every month. So we'll try that out next Saturday, see what fails. Rebuild and do it again. So that's for next Saturday. And then the big day is on June 18, which you mentioned. So the Geneva event has been moved, and June 18 is going to be the new date, where for the very first time at the UN's AI for Good Summit, Africa will have a voice, right? We've been fighting with them for several months, where we said, you guys, this is the biggest gathering in the world of companies using AI to solve AI for good. So AI to solve UN development goals. And most of those problems happen in Africa. So how come no African innovators ever speak at this conference? they agreed. And so they've given us an ability to put up 3 webinars. So we've split that up across 3 different groups, and our group, Alliance for AI, will host one on June 18, where we'll be talking about the future of work in Africa and Africa's people around the entire world as impacted by AI. And so we'll have I will give one keynote. The Minister of Technology in South Africa, she will give another keynote, and the Director of Education from UNESCO will give a keynote. And then we'll talk about all these African innovators doing incredible stuff. So please, yeah, tune into that if you're able. I'll share the links if you follow me on Twitter. And excited.
We'll post all of that. Thank you so much for coming on, Alex. I wanted to make sure, so you guys watching, make sure that you look out for his episode. It's going to drop this weekend, later today on our Anchor link, but we'll be, promoting all of our episodes. Check out our past. This is now our 3rd one. Black Genius is on a roll. We're doing it. So check out our past episodes if you haven't watched them, but stay connected. If you are doing amazing work to liberate Black people, to empower Black people, send us your press releases, send us your photos to editor@northpress.org. We have the Global Black Meditation happening. Well, actually, later today, we're going to be having a conversation on The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. We have a nice combination of scholars and athletes and basketball fans. So that's going to be a dope conversation. It's going to be right here on Facebook Live, so come check that out. And then on Wednesday, we have our Global Black Meditation at noon. We all got to get on the same page and use, we got to connect with our inner power, right? So let's do it together. Let's manifest a new world together. And then next weekend, here on Black Genius, I have Faith Crittenden, my producer, she's on my team. She's like, Black medical genius. And then Jennifer Peter, we're gonna mix it up. We're making the rules as we go along. So just gotta roll on with us. But we're gonna have them talking about Black health in the post-COVID era. So from the conventional medicine direction to the naturopathic, how do we bring them together and really empower ourselves to stay healthy and just rise above all of this madness? Thank you guys for watching today. I love you. I appreciate you. Eat your greens, take your vitamin C, stay healthy and meditate and pray and just love on each other. We got this. We just have to hold each other down and we're going to be all right. Okay? Take it easy and stay tuned.
Thank you so much.